So thank you for being with us. Ari, I'd love to go to you now to talk a little bit about this war we saw over the weekend, this Star Wars in the sky. Rather amazing. Thank you, Ari Sacher, for leading the way on the Iron Dome missile defense system.
You, Heather. What we saw on Saturday night was simply unprecedented. It was 30 years in the making. I remember in 1991, we were just been in Israel for 10 years, a young couple, and we're sitting in our apartment in Haifa, and we heard that Saddam Hussein threatened to fire missiles on us on January the 15th, because that's when the ultimatum expired. President Bush's, the father's ultimatum expired. And we began sweating ever more profusely, but we thought to ourselves, they would never, ever shoot at us, because if they tried shooting at us, then we would respond with such vim and vigor that they would rue the day that they ever fired at us. Lo and behold, January the 15th came, and they fired Scud B missiles all over Israel, guided missiles at the heart of our population centers in Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan. Thankfully, no one was killed. It was definitely in my opinion an act of God. How 39 of these missiles fell, and no one was killed. But we understood we had a problem. And this problem was that our urban areas had become targeted, and we believed that they would become targeted in the future. And so, State of Israel set out to build a multi-layer missile defense system. What is a multi-layer missile defense system? Well, it turns out that shooting down a missile is not as easy as it sounds. For me, I'm a rocket scientist. Sounds pretty easy. But it turns out that it is a bit more difficult. How so? It turns out that the further a missile flies, faster it goes. It's like throwing a ball. The further you throw the ball, then the faster it goes. If you want to throw the ball from the pitcher's mound to home plate, and anybody can throw that. Former presidents do it all the time on opening day. But if you want to peg a guy out from shortstop, you're going to have to throw further. And if you want, there's a high fly to the right field corner, and you want to get a guy who's tagging up and you want to throw it home, then you're going to throw that ball harder, higher, and faster. Just the way things fly. And conversely, the harder, higher, and faster you throw a ball, the more difficult it is to catch. Same thing with rockets. The further you fire a rocket, the faster it's got to go, the higher it's got to go, and the more difficult it is to intercept. We understood that we have people from all around us who want to share the love. Israel is just that kind of country. We beckon. Throw your rockets at us. We have people that live close to us, people in Lebanon and Gaza, people that live further, Syria, points east, Iran. And we understood, Iraq, obviously, are the first guys who fired at us. And we understood that we had to build a system, an integrated system that would be able to manage to deal with all of these threats. And the way we did it was we divided the sky into levels. The lowest level is the level of things that are coming from about up to 40 or so miles out. That is the bailiwick of a system called Iron Dome. That's the easy stuff. That's the stuff coming from Gaza. That's the stuff coming in the landing in the north where I live from places like Lebanon, where Hezbollah owns and operates. Iran's favorite proxy. For 5 years in a row, their favorite proxy award. Beyond Iron Dome, if it's coming in further than about 40 miles out, then it's coming a bit too difficult for Iron Dome. So there's another system that is above Iron Dome, and that is called David's Sling. And David's Sling is designed to take out rockets that are coming further than the ones that Iron Dome can take out. Obviously, if Iron Dome can take out the rocket, we want to take it out with Iron Dome and not David's Sling, because you will see that the more difficult it is to catch a ball, the more expensive it is to catch a ball. And these systems cost almost exponentially more than the ones lower than that. David's Sling costs significantly more than an Iron Dome interceptor. There are some weapons that are coming in too high and too fast for David's Sling. So they're in the bailiwick of what we call Arrow 2. The Arrow 2 system produced by Israel Aircraft Industries. Above Arrow 2 is Arrow 3. And Arrow 3 actually intercepts targets in outer space. It leaves the atmosphere, goes into outer space. And all of these systems gradually have been lined up to protect the state of Israel. The first system out there is actually Arrow 2, followed by Iron Dome, followed by David Sling, followed by Arrow 3. And actually, they're working on Arrow 4 right now that can protect against even more difficult threats. Well, on Saturday night, we were totally taxed. We were fired upon not only by ballistic weapons from Syria, from Iraq, from Iran, from the south, from the Houthis in Yemen, a whole assortment of ballistic rockets. I think the smallest warhead was about a half a ton of high explosives. A half a ton of high explosives falling in your home will put a crimp in your afternoon or your evening, as far as we were concerned. And there were those ballistic missiles coming in. The Iranians also fired what's called suicide drones, and these are smaller jets that are carrying smaller warheads. They also fired what's called cruise missiles, and cruise missiles are a sort of suicide drone, but they're sleeker and they fly lower and they fly faster. And we had to take all of these things out. Now, not only do we have to use our systems, our 4 systems that are up and running, Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow 2, and Arrow 3, but there is another way to skin the cat, especially the cat of suicide drones. We in Israel had never faced such a huge swarm of suicide drones. And the answer to the suicide drone problem is actually by using good old-fashioned airplanes, F-15s, F-16s, F-35s, that were armed by air-to-air missiles, by AMRAAMs, by Sidewinders, by Python 5s. And these were used also to take out, and there's a lovely, lovely video, I mean, for me, it's lovely, lovely video of these airplanes taking out these drones. Now, not only was Israel taking out the drones, but other countries were taking out the drones as well. It was clear. The Iranians, as Heather said, had telegraphed their move. We knew it was going to happen. The country was nearly in hysteria, just waiting for the boot to drop. And when it did, we had assistance. We had assistance from the Americans. There were 12 F-15 fighters that were flown in on Saturday afternoon from the UK. There are British Eurofighters that are floating around that part of the world, based in the east. There were also apparently Jordanian fighters that were shooting down missiles. Now, the Jordanians announced not only that their fighters were shooting down missiles that were flying over sovereign Jordanian territory, which they had every right to shoot at. Not only did they shoot them down, but a news article came out earlier, I believe yesterday, that the princess, the daughter of the king Abdallah and Princess Rania, that she actually shot down 5 drones in her F-16. When that news hit the media, there were riots in Jordan, and the royal palace was forced to retract the article. My daughter shoot down missiles? Not me. She was watching television all night. At any rate, there were a lot of countries that were working together. Not only that, but Israel has radars that operate at a certain distance and a certain altitude. Because of the curvature of the earth, we can't see what's going on too low far away, such that we had no idea. We couldn't have used our radars to figure out that the Iranians had fired off their weapons. It was clear that we were getting data from other countries. Which other countries? I don't know. But what we had was a case of a multi-layer, multi-nation integrated air and missile defense. And all of this is being controlled somehow. I mean, it's as if these people had actually practiced it before, because everybody needs to know which threat they're going to take. I can't have 2 jets taking the same threat, because there's going to be a threat without a jet, and the 2 jets might shoot each other down. And yet all of this operated flawlessly. And I mean flawlessly. I mean 99% of what was fired at us was either shot down or hit areas that we didn't care about. The only thing that did hit Israel was one ballistic missile with a very large warhead, I believe 1,800 kilos, which is it's close to 2 tons of a warhead, and that hit an Air Force base, the Nevatim Air Force Base, where, by the way, F-35 Squadron is based. It hit near a runway. It made this huge hole in the ground, and that was it. And
Mm.
I can tell you from a spectator who knows way too much and not nearly enough about what's going on over his head. I went to sleep on Saturday night when I heard that the drones had been launched before the ballistic missiles had been launched. We knew the ballistic missiles were going to be launched. The idea was to make sure everything comes in at the same time, and the ballistic missiles fly so much faster than the drones. I went to bed confident.
Mm.
I went to bed saying the 20th Psalm. Hashem b'yom tzara, God should answer us in times of adversity. And I woke up and ball game was over. And we switched from the 20th Psalm, we jumped to the 100th Psalm, Mizmor L'Todah, a psalm of thanks. What happened was unprecedented.
Mm.
And the question is, what happens next?
Right.
And I believe what's going to happen next is not what should be happening next. I believe that the
Ochsner
Iranians
Hospital this morning, given blood, and a man had
lost it. I believe that the Iranians have been led off by the U.S. and the European nations with a stern tongue lashing. I don't want to see you ever do that again. If you ever fire missiles at Israel again, we're going to be extremely angry. A country fired off 60 tons of high explosives on the sovereign state of Israel. The cost of defending against these weapons costs only the state of Israel on the order of $500 million. This is what it costs to defend against the drones, the ballistic missiles specifically, because they're much more expensive to defend against, and to keep our jets flying in the air for 6 hours. And one would expect Israel would have the right to fight back. And yet the United States has told Israel to, I quote, take the W, just take the win. If Iran understands that Iran can get off with shooting a huge volley of weapons at Israel, regardless of what the outcome is, and he can get off with the tongue lashing, and Israel is being told to stand down, then this is a critical loss of deterrence, not only of the state of Israel, which cannot defend itself, which is content to walk out with a huge suit of armor and take a slug at me, take a slug at me. You won't be able to beat me. You won't be able to beat me, but we won't be able to beat you. There is nothing that we can do to prevent them from doing this again if we do not hit back. It's a loss of deterrence, not only of the state of Israel, it is a loss of deterrence of the United States of America and of the European nations, which are also forcing our hand.
Mm.
So if you ask how I'm feeling in Israel, on the one hand, I'm feeling ecstatic because what we lived through was salvation. I mean, that's really the only way to describe it. To see what happened and to understand what happened and how in danger we were, and how within 6 hours the tables have completely turned. On the other hand, I am angry at Israel's being limited to defend itself, but I'm hopeful because I believe that the state of Israel and its allies, the United States especially, and Europe, understand the threat, understand the Iranian threat. I believe that we can reach an understanding on how to deal with the Iranian threat, that de-escalation is not necessarily the best way ahead. I
Mhm.
believe that Israel will come out on top. We are seeing tectonic changes. I can't describe how and why they're happening when this all started on October the 7th. But I believe that at the end of the day, when this is all over, and I do not know when this is all over, I do not know if we are in the beginning of the Israeli-Iranian war or at the end of the first Israeli-Iranian war, that the situation will be infinitely better than it was before. I'm going to hand the ball back to Heather.
Yeah, great. Well, Ari, talk a little bit for 1 minute just about how we have over the last 10 years, because we've played a pretty major role, USIEA has, in the development of the missile defense collaboration. And, I remember taking Mac Thornberry to Israel. He was the chairman on armed services, and he had determined that he was not going to test the Arrow 3 missile defense system over Alaska, that he did not think that was a wise investment of money and that Israel should be able to handle that. And over the course of a week, taking him to see it, understanding it, and then kind of talking him down from that ledge, he agreed to finance out of the armed services the $100 million testing of the Arrow 3. And we saw the Arrow 3 in operation in this war. Absolutely amazing. And so, Ari, talk a little bit about our history.
USIEA has from the first time I was ever introduced to USIEA was when Heather brought the first tour, and it was led by Doug Lamborn, who was at the time the chair of the House Armed Services Committee, and we went to see Iron Dome, and this was no trivial matter. I believe Heather went to Prime Minister Netanyahu when the group went to meet him, and the system was classified at the time. I remember that Iron Dome's first intercept was in April of 2011, and this was only a couple of months afterwards. And as only Heather can do, she convinced the prime minister to let the members see the system. And when you see the system and you learn about the system and you understand the system, then it is compelling to the point that the U.S. has supported the system to date to the tune of greater than $1.6 billion, soon to turn into the $2.6 billion, and who knows what's going to happen after this war. USIEA was brought myself and the head of the Israel Missile Defense Organization to D.C. To speak about Iron Dome, about David Sling, so that the members could understand what I'm teaching you right now. And when you hear about it and you understand it, and it's presented to them in a way that they can compare it to things that they know, then the issue is compelling. I think the feather in our cap is really the flight test of Arrow 3. Israel cannot test Arrow 3 the way we want to test it, because of the way we are, are geographically located. We have to fire all our missiles to the west. And we're firing it over the Mediterranean Sea, where there are boats and there are airplanes, and we're severely limited. The only way we could really test the system, and in Israel, when we test the system, we test the system with a ragged edge of our envelope, and we couldn't test it in Israel. We didn't know what our system is really capable of doing. And the only way that we could really find out what the system was made of was by testing it in Alaska. And there was a lot of blowback from Congress, but talking to the right people and introducing the right people and explaining it to them, which is what USIEA did, really stemmed the tide and turned the tide. And the United States Congress supported the flight test, and here we are where we are. We have been protected as of 2 days ago by Arrow 3. And thank God for that. We're going to keep on doing what it is we're doing, keep on pounding the pavement and explaining to people what's going on in ways that they can understand, ways that they will find compelling, and we will push collaboration. It's not you're giving us money and we're using it. It's collaboration, because this technology is coming right back to the United States and to its allies.
Mm-hmm. So good. Well, Ari, thank you for that.